Did you know that a simple massage could unlock the door to something terrifying? I went in expecting relaxation, but what I found was a horror that still haunts me to this day. The massage parlor had always been known for its serene atmosphere and expert therapists. It was a small, dimly lit place tucked away in a quiet corner of town, its reputation bolstered by word of mouth and glowing reviews. People would say that it was the perfect escape, a sanctuary where one could leave the stress of the outside world behind. But there were whispers, too, hushed rumors that certain clients and staff had experienced things that couldn't be explained. Some spoke of flickering lights and sudden cold drafts, while others hinted at shadows that moved on their own, glimpsed only in the corner of an eye. One evening, I found myself walking through its doors, eager to unwind after a long week. The receptionist greeted me with a warm smile, though I noticed her eyes dart nervously toward the hallway leading to the treatment rooms. I dismissed it as fatigue and followed her instructions to one of the rooms at the back, where a soft glow from a salt lamp cast eerie shadows on the walls. As I lay down on the massage table, I felt a strange unease creeping in, but I tried to push it away, closing my eyes and waiting for the therapist to begin. The first few minutes were exactly what I expected. Gentle, soothing strokes that began to melt away the tension in my muscles. But then, something changed. The air grew heavy, and I could swear the temperature dropped, despite the warmth of the room. I opened my eyes and glanced around, noticing that the once gentle flickering of the candles had become erratic, their flames dancing wildly as if caught in an invisible wind. The therapist's hands felt different too, colder, firmer, almost as if they belonged to someone else. I wanted to speak, to ask if everything was all right, but my voice seemed to fail me, trapped in my throat. As the minutes ticked by, the unease turned to fear. The walls seemed to close in, the shadows growing darker and more defined. I could hear faint whispers, though I couldn't make out the words, and the soft music playing in the background became distorted, almost malevolent. My heart raced as I tried to sit up, but I felt a pressure on my chest, holding me down. That's when I saw it, a dark figure looming over me, its face obscured by shadow, yet its presence undeniable. My mind screamed at me to run, but my body was frozen, paralyzed by an overwhelming sense of dread. The figure leaned closer, and I felt its breath on my neck, cold, like a winter chill. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, until they were all I could hear. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it stopped. The figure vanished, the room returning to its previous calm, though the air still buzzed with an unnatural energy. I bolted upright, my heart pounding, and found the therapist standing by the door, her face pale and her eyes wide with fear. "Did you feel that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. I nodded, too shaken to speak, and hurriedly dressed, desperate to leave that room and whatever had been in it. But as I stood up, something strange happened. A dizzying sensation washed over me, and suddenly, it was as if I was being pulled out of my own body. I looked down, seeing myself still lying on the table, eyes closed, while my consciousness seemed to float above. Panic surged through me, but before I could even process what was happening, I found myself plunged into darkness. When the world came back into focus, I was no longer in the massage room. Instead, I was in a place that defied all logic, a vast, shadowy realm filled with flickering lights and the echoing cries of the lost. I wandered through this eerie landscape, feeling the cold grip of terror tighten around me. The air was thick with despair, and I could see shapes moving in the distance, human-like, but distorted, their faces twisted in anguish. These were the souls of those who had been trapped here before me, victims who had fallen prey to the same dark force that had nearly claimed me. They approached cautiously, their voices a chorus of whispers. "You must escape," they urged. "This place is a prison for those who couldn't break free." With their guidance, I began to navigate this world, each step heavy with the weight of countless lost souls who had tried and failed to escape. The ground beneath me seemed to pulse with a life of its own, and the shadows around me shifted constantly, as if the darkness itself was alive, watching, waiting for me to falter. The souls pointed me toward a distant light, faint but steady, the only sign of hope in this nightmarish place. But the journey was far from easy. The closer I got to the light, the more the shadows resisted, forming barriers and whispering threats that chilled me to the bone. At one point, I was grabbed by the shadows, their icy fingers dragging me backward. But the souls came to my aid, pulling me free and urging me forward. "Don't look back," they warned. "The demon feeds on fear. You must believe you can escape." Their words gave me strength, and I pushed forward with renewed determination, focusing only on that distant glimmer of light. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I reached the light. It enveloped me, warm and bright, blinding in its intensity. I felt a sudden, wrenching pull, and then, in an instant, I was back in the massage room, gasping for breath. The therapist was beside me, shaking me gently, her face etched with concern. "You were gone for a while," she said softly. "I couldn't wake you." The experience left me shaken to my core. I knew what I had seen was real, that I'd come face to face with something beyond our understanding, a world where lost souls lingered, trapped by a malevolent force. The massage parlor closed its doors not long after, and the building was abandoned, left to decay as the whispers of its dark past grew louder. I never went back, and I never will. But sometimes, late at night, when the world is quiet and the shadows grow long, I can still feel that presence, the cold breath on my neck, the whispers in my ear. One evening, as I lay in bed trying to shake off the lingering memories, I felt an odd sensation, a subtle pressure on my shoulders. My heart raced as I realized what was happening. It was the same feeling I had experienced in the massage parlor. Frozen with fear, I felt the pressure intensify, as if invisible hands were kneading my muscles, dragging me back into that dark world. The room around me began to blur, and before I could scream, I was pulled back into the shadowy realm of the lost souls. This time, the souls were frantic, their whispers urgent, warning me that the demon had followed me home. Panicking, I struggled against the pull, desperately trying to wake myself up, to escape. But the demon's grip was stronger now, feeding on the fear that had festered within me since that fateful massage. The souls gathered around, their voices rising in a desperate chant, trying to guide me towards some form of escape. "The answer is closer than you think," they said. "Look within, and you will find the way out." Just as I was about to be consumed by the darkness, I remembered something a friend had told me, a way to cleanse a space of malevolent spirits. Summoning all my strength, I forced myself awake, the room snapping back into focus. I knew what I had to do. The next day, I sought out a local voodoo priest, a man known for his spiritual wisdom and powerful rituals. I told him everything about the massage, the lost souls, and the demon that had followed me home. He listened quietly, nodding, and then he gave me instructions for a spiritual cleansing ritual. I was to purify my home, bathing it in the smoke of sacred herbs, and then immerse myself in a ritual bath, one that would cleanse not just my body but my soul. That evening, as darkness fell, I began the ritual. I lit the herbs, allowing the thick, fragrant smoke to fill every corner of my house, driving away the shadows that clung to the walls. I could feel the energy shifting, the oppressive weight lifting ever so slightly. Finally, I prepared the bath, following the priest's instructions to the letter. The water was infused with oils and powders, their scents heady and strong. And as I stepped in, I felt a strange warmth envelop me, as though the water itself was alive, working to cleanse away the darkness that had attached itself to me. As I submerged myself fully, I felt something incredible. A release, as though invisible chains were snapping, one by one. I could almost hear the demon's scream of frustration, fading into the distance as it was banished from my life. The soul's whispers grew faint, and then, for the first time in weeks, there was silence. True, peaceful silence. I emerged from the bath, feeling lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted from me. That night, for the first time since the nightmare began, I slept soundly, undisturbed by the darkness that had once haunted me. The next morning, I awoke with a sense of peace, a clarity that had eluded me for so long. The demon was gone, and the shadow of the lost souls had lifted. Since that night, the strange occurrences have ceased. My home is my sanctuary once more, protected by the ritual that banished the darkness. Yet, I will never forget the terror I experienced, the brush with a world that lies just beyond our own, waiting for the unsuspecting. But I know now that the power to protect oneself lies within. Sometimes, the way out of the darkness is closer than we think. If you've had a similar experience, or know someone who has, share your story. Perhaps, together, we can unravel the mystery of the unseen. And if you enjoy tales like this, don't forget to subscribe. There are more chilling stories yet to be told.